Hello everyone, welcome to my YouTube channel. My name is Dakota and I'm a health coach, and I help women dealing with stress and anxiety accomplish their weight loss goals so that they can feel powerful. It is really my mission to show women that they can take charge and be the boss of their health so that they no longer feel powerless and out of control. And in today's video, I'm going to be answering the question is saturated fat good or bad? I know that there is a lot of controversy around this topic and we are being told different things all the time. And I just wanted to give you my 2 cents of the matter and explain it simply so that you can go and think critically for yourself what you think the answer to that question is. So I just want to first off say that this is no way medical advice, and I'm not telling you to go eat saturated fat, but I am showing you kind of the controversy and why saturated fat can be a good thing, and then you can go and make the decision yourself on whether you think it is good or not. But this is not medical advice. Okay, so first off, I just want to talk about, what have we been told about saturated fat? Well, we've been told that saturated fat causes heart disease, it raises LDL, it gives you a heart attack, we should eat less saturated fat and eat more vegetable oils instead. We've been told that red meat especially is really bad for us and we should avoid it as much as possible. And we've been told to limit our saturated fat to less than 10% of our calories. So my question is, does this make sense? And are there actual studies proving this causation as a fact? And the short answer to this is no and no. And we will get right into this. So first off, the studies are not conclusive. They are not showing causation. It is not black and white. It's only showing correlation and pretty weak correlation for what we have gathered so far. There are actually more studies that are showing that saturated fat isn't bad for us and it can be beneficial for in our diet. So where the heck do we get this idea? Why has saturated fat become such a bad thing that we should avoid at all costs? Well, around the 60s is when this idea of saturated fat being bad for us began. Men were having heart attacks. It was becoming more prevalent and people didn't know what was going on. And so scientists started to really look into it to see what was in our diet or in our lifestyle that could be affecting this. And the first person to really kickstart this idea that saturated fat caused heart disease was Ancel Keys. He did a 7-country study where he traveled all over the world, to 7 countries. And his goal was to travel to these different countries who don't have this high prevalence of heart disease and see what they're doing that could potentially be beneficial or not leading to heart disease. So he was looking at their diet, he was looking at their lifestyle, and conducting observational studies. And so when he did this, he came up with data showing that in these countries where they had low prevalence of heart disease, they weren't eating as much saturated fat as America. So this is kind of where everything started. He ended up creating the diet heart hypothesis, and it led into a domino effect of policies and recommendations of limiting saturated fat. And so this is where it all started. And really, this was not great research. It wasn't a conclusive study. It was showing it was epidemiological studies that didn't show causation. It showed a correlation, and it was pretty weak evidence. He left out a lot of other countries and indigenous tribes that ate mainly fat and didn't have heart disease at all. So there was a lot of data that didn't show up that could have really shown that saturated fat wasn't such a bad thing. And there were lots of other scientists who were trying to challenge this idea that saturated fat wasn't bad, but the evidence and the science and the studies that were done just kept getting ignored and shut down, and really this whole idea that it's bad for us came from Ancel Keys, and it has stayed for decades. So science right now actually has studies, systematic reviews that show that saturated fat doesn't cause heart disease and that it's really not that bad for us. But, it's not being put out there. It's not being talked about because who wants to be wrong for decades, and who wants to be telling us that, oh, never mind, saturated fat's actually fine for us. Go ahead and eat it, after we've been told over and over again to avoid it completely. So the research is not great. It's very weak. And if you don't want to take my word for it, I challenge you to look into it. There are so many other doctors and scientists and people trying to fight this right now, trying to get the word out there that saturated fat is good for us and that we can include it in our diet and that it doesn't cause heart disease. So I challenge you to look into this, critically think about it, and find other people who are saying the same thing. And so now I just want to get into, yes, besides the research, it also doesn't make logical sense. Right. So human beings have been around for 200,000 years. We were eating animals and plants. We were hunter-gatherers, and we weren't just eating plants as our primary food. We couldn't. There's no way. We wouldn't be able to survive that way. There wasn't enough plants in the wild for us to get enough energy, get enough protein, get enough fat for us to survive. So we had to eat animals. So as human beings, we've been eating it for thousands of years, and now all of a sudden in the 1960s, it's apparently bad for us. Doesn't make sense. And even when we started farming and growing our own crops and having our animals on our own farms, we were still eating animal as our primary food source. Civilization started around 6,000 years ago, and that's when farming started to come into play. And then the Industrial Revolution began around the 1800s, where we started making more processed foods, more vegetable oils, extracting that from plants, putting that in processed foods. And that's when things started to show up for us as far as heart disease, chronic disease. So is it really the saturated fat, or is it what we started to do with plants and what we started to do with our food by trying to make it more processed and shelf stable that caused heart disease? So this is just something that I want you to think about when you are thinking critically on, if saturated fat is bad or good. And so now I just want to get into how can saturated fat be good? What are the benefits? If it is good for us, why should we eat it? For one, it triggers satiety hormones. It keeps you fuller for longer. It is a great fuel source. It's nutrient dense. It contains vitamin A, D, E, and K. It can help you reduce sugar cravings or even cravings for other carbs because you are getting the fuel that you need. You are getting the vitamins that you need, and it satiates you. It minimally impacts your insulin. So that means you're not getting high insulin spikes, and that can reduce your risk of insulin resistance, which has been shown to cause obesity and other chronic disease like heart disease. So it minimally impacts insulin. It can help balance your hormones. Your hormones are made of cholesterol and fat, so it needs fat. And that saturated fat can really help fuel and keep those cells healthy. It can help with keeping your energy levels normalized and balanced. Sugar and carbs, they spike your insulin, spike your blood sugar, and then you feel low energy a couple hours later. With fat, that doesn't happen. And, when we eat more fat, we inherently eat less sugar and carbs. Now, the difference between animal fats and vegetable oils. Well, we've been told to eat vegetable oils to replace saturated fat, but vegetable oils oxidize really fast. They are unstable oils. They're unsaturated fats. And when heated or when processed, it oxidizes, causes inflammation in the body. It's not good for us. It raises our insulin. And, new research is coming up showing that it could be even worse than sugar for us. So animal fats, they are more stable. They're saturated. They don't oxidize as quickly, and they are shelf stable. My personal experience, I have felt amazing eating more animal, satisfied when I eat. I am satiated. I have way less cravings. I have more energy throughout the day. My, menstrual cycle has been extremely improved from it. And I've seen all of these benefits that, I know that there's no way that this is bad for us. But again, do your research. If you don't want to take my word for it, look into this. There are other experts who talk about it. And I am definitely not the only one trying to push this idea that it isn't so bad for us. So if you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up. And also if you want more videos like this, subscribe to my channel and you will get updates on when I post new videos. And if you are looking for more guidance on how to lose weight, manage your stress so that you can take control of your health and see permanent results, that is what my coaching program is all about. If you are interested, you can schedule a free call with me by clicking on the link in the description. All right, thank you for listening. Bye.